Now then, everybody, welcome to the Wedding Mavericks podcast. It's just me, Jules, today. And the Wedding Mavericks podcast is for photographers and videographers, where we discuss all aspects of running a business, developing technical knowledge and skills, and pushing your creativity. Like I said, Lindsay's not here today. It's one of those situations where, because we live together, we've got kids together, so sometimes it's difficult to find a place in the week where we can record the podcast together. And this week we've just been a little bit busy with various work commitments, and then we just ran out of time. So I'm going to record it on my own so that we've got an episode to put out this week. And today I am going to be discussing ideal clients and how to identify them and why it's important. So the term ideal client is probably something you've heard before. It doesn't really matter what industry you're in. It's an important marketing concept to understand and an important branding concept to understand, because you need to know who is buying your service and product, and therefore who you are trying to brand yourself for and market yourself to. And I guess the easiest way to think about this is to think about the people whose weddings that you've already captured. Think about, what those weddings were like, who those people were. And also another angle is to look at data. So, for instance, if you capture data of the people that inquire with you, if you capture data about the people who book with you and which weddings you've done, you'll be able to use that data to understand who you've been working with previously, who inquires with you, etc., and see if that fits with the other determining factors when it comes to who an ideal client might be. So if you're at the beginning of your business journey, you may not have too much to analyze in terms of data or experience of doing a wedding. So it's going to take you a little bit of time to establish who you've worked with in the past, which types of clients you liked, and the weddings that you enjoyed more than others. And also, when you're first starting out, you don't necessarily need to know as in a particular way who your ideal client is, because at the beginning, your ideal client might be just people getting married, simply because they're the people, you just want to do weddings so that you can get the experience. And then as you've done more weddings and as you get more experience under your belt and you start to think about things a little bit more intentionally, that's when kind of this process, this ideal client process, comes into it. And that could be, that could be 5 to 10 weddings in, that could be a little bit further down the line. But it's also something that you need to come back to on a regular basis, because it will change. So once you've kind of thought about this, you can start to think more intentionally about who you would like to be buying your service or your product from you in the future. Hopefully one of those reasons is, one of the reasons for doing this is because you want to capture the types of weddings that you enjoy doing. If you enjoy doing something and it's not just kind of a transactional task thing, then you're more likely to kind of put passion and enthusiasm into it, and therefore you're most likely to kind of create your best work, and you're going to be content in what you're doing. And generally, those feelings of contentment and having passion and enthusiasm for what you're doing, that will hopefully lead to kind of longevity and sustainability for you in this industry and for your business. And it's also important to progress your business both creatively and financially. we've talked about this stuff already in terms of pricing and finances and how kind of those things impact your business and your business planning. So it will be different for everybody. One person's goal is not another person's. So some people won't have the same kind of ambitions or requirements to progress financially. Or creatively, some people are happy with where they are, doing what they're doing, and they like being in that comfort zone, and that's perfectly fine if that's where you want to be and that's what you're happy doing. So depending on what stage you're at in your creative and financial goals will change and determine the sort of clients that you're going to work with. So therefore the clients you work with and your ideal client will likely change as time goes on. So it's a reciprocal process is revisiting your ideal client to make sure that as your business changes and develops, you still understand and you're still defining who that ideal client is. You should look to understand who these people are, because it's going to help you to organize your marketing strategy and to develop your branding in an intentional way, because what you're wanting to do is you're wanting your brand to connect and speak with the people who you are talking to, the people that you're wanting to attract, your ideal client. So if you know who the ideal client is, then you can speak to that person. And you're also wanting to make sure that you're making the best use of your time and your money and your effort in relation to marketing. And however you're doing your marketing, whatever routes you're going down to get clients, and that could be organically by just putting stuff out and getting referrals, but how you're doing that, what you're putting out, and the way that you're putting it out, which is, if you're working on mainly a referral thing, is going to be very much the clients that you're working with at the moment. And so you want to make sure that the effort, time, money you're putting into things is going to be targeting the right people and bringing in the people that you want to work with. So it doesn't matter how you do this. You can do this in a super simple way, or you could go really in depth. And shortly I'm going to go through the kind of how I determined, how me and Lindsay have gone through and determined our ideal client. And what the things are that you should consider when trying to define who that is. First of all, though, it's worth mentioning that a common mistake is probably to believe that the people who are your ideal client and who you want to work with in the future are just like you. And the thing is, if you've got married already, and like Lindsay and I are coming up to our 15-year wedding anniversary this time, or if you're in the process of planning a wedding, then you can probably imagine yourself using the service that you provide. And therefore you can kind of really empathize with somebody who's getting married, and hopefully you'd kind of deliver the service in a way that you would want to receive it. You treat people the way you want to be treated. And this isn't a bad thing, because like I've said, you can empathize with someone getting married. And if you kind of think about it like you know what your likes and dislikes and everything are, what your wants, needs and expectations are. So you could market to yourself quite well. And a lot of people will just automatically do that. And I think in some way we do this. However, just because you're getting married or you've been married doesn't mean that you're going to have exactly the same preferences, desires, or budgets, and the whole brief for capturing the wedding is going to be the same. You're not going to necessarily have that same set of attributes as the people you really want to work with, who your ideal client is. And the reason that we've discussed the pricing and the financial side of weddings before, before we went into discussing clients and discussing marketing is that, to be fair, money matters when it comes to who the clients are, and how you're going to market to them. And it's likely that depending what stage you're at in your business, that the people that you're marketing to are not necessarily going to be exactly the same as you. They might have similar personality traits and things like that, but certainly if I was going to be kind of, if I was going to be objective about it, the people that we are trying to work with in the future, our ideal client, it probably wouldn't be the same as me and Lindsay, simply because I don't think we could afford our services going forward. I think if we were getting married now, we're starting to get to a point where we're kind of pricing ourselves higher than what we would be able to afford, and therefore we no longer look like our ideal client. So we have to imagine somebody who isn't necessarily like us, because financially that's one thing, but also there might be other attributes, and therefore trying to think about in that person's shoes. So for instance, like shoes, for example, I can't imagine Lindsay going and spending 500 quid or £1,000 on a pair of shoes. But I've worked with plenty of couples who have gone out and spent that much on a pair of shoes or more. And it's the same with like a bloke's suit. I can't imagine me going out and spending thousands of pounds on a suit. I have seen plenty of grooms and the groomsmen wearing suits that cost thousands of pounds, and I would never even if I had the money, I probably wouldn't spend it on that. So I have to think outside of my own sort of preferences when we are considering ideal client attributes. So as things change in your business and your strategic ambition of your business becomes detached from your own circumstances and preferences, and therefore your ideal client and target market probably changes because of the economic and location, employment attributes. What might not change is the couple, the type of couple and the type of wedding, because you're likely always going to be attracted to working with a certain type of personality, a certain type of style, and a certain type of venue or type of wedding. And that's because those people, if you have niched down your style of work, those people are, no matter what social economic class they're in, if you like, and what their circumstances are, they're always likely to, value what it is that you do if you've kind of niched down and you're offering a very unique and specific product. Now, if you're just offering wedding photography, just offering wedding videography, and it's very similar, and there isn't really a USP type of element to it, and we've obviously talked about that in relation to kind of pricing and having a USP so that you can charge more and you can offer more value. And we will go into a few more details in other topics that we'll talk about. But essentially, you wanting to kind of know that type of client will book you, and that's why the type of couple and the type of wedding and the style of everything might not change as much as like the money side of things, the location side of things, because location where people are getting married and where people are based might be linked to their economic situation and their employment. So you might always want to, or might always attract those types of clients. And I think a way to look at that is we're getting to a point where we're definitely working with clients where they might not be having the most lavish wedding, but they are video or photo and video are very important to them. And so therefore they have invested in that area. But in other areas of the wedding, they're not spending a huge amount. But then there are obviously the weddings where they have more money, but they're still looking at you for a reason, and hopefully then you'll still connect well with the couple. I'll leave it there because I think I've made the point. And because of that, over the years, we've captured a real mix of weddings in terms of budgets and styles and preferences. And like I've said, the end product and the way that we approach a wedding has been the determining factor when it comes to these couples. So the more the further you get in your business and the deeper you get into kind of this ideal client, you start to attract couples that are much more into what you do and the way that you do it. So you've got like a head start on delivering a great service because they're already kind of happy before you even do anything for them because they're really invested in what you're doing. And then there's also the aspect of after the wedding, they're more likely to be good with referrals, give you great testimonials, and then it kind of like progresses into attracting more of the same people because the guests at their wedding are likely to be similar to them. So it all starts really with working out who your ideal client is. Once you establish that, you know who you're writing your copy for, who you're creating social media posts for, how you kind of trying to attract people using your website, how you're going to spend your marketing budget, the types of venues you want to kind of aim to be working at or getting on lists and things for, and even areas of the country or potentially even the world that you're aiming to work with. So talking about this because recently we've been doing it ourselves, and that's why it seems like a good time to discuss it. Because we've been going through our rebranding process with our podcast sponsor, Divine Studios, and they've been taking us through the branding process. And one of the first things they did was say, you need to come up with this client persona, this avatar, so that they could use that information to help with the branding process to create a direction as we're moving forwards. Because we're trying to change the branding to reflect where things are at the moment and where we want them to be going forward. I can't tell you how excited we are. I really can't. Genuinely, every step of the way, it's been so exciting to watch the kind of ideas coming together and going through the process. And we're now at a stage where we've just had our brand guidelines delivered, and we're just like it's weird because it's just sort of like, you know, colours and fonts and you know, a logo, and that's essentially what those brand guidelines are doing. But underneath that, all of this process that we've been going through has helped us to refine exactly what we're wanting to do going forward and who we're wanting to do it for and how we're going to attract those people and how we're going to deliver that service that we want to deliver. And now we're going into the process of the website design and development, and we're really excited. You know, it's just, I can't wait for it to be able to show people it and to be able to start integrating it into everything that we're doing. So Divine are great. Can't say anything. You know, they're amazing at what they do. And if you're looking for professional designers and website developer to help you create these experiences for your brand and for your customers and your clients, you know, I can't recommend enough. So if you get in touch with them, you can get a free consultation, and mention Wedding Mavericks, you'll get 10% discount on their services. Thanks, Divine, for creating our amazing new brand. So I'm not going to go into masses and masses of detail and read absolutely everything out, but I think it's time that we go through the identity of our ideal client and the attributes that we considered. So if you haven't done this process before at any point, I really suggest that you get a pen and paper, or maybe listen to the podcast back when it's appropriate and just make some notes. And then you can write down your own attributes and ideal client persona. I think it's something it'll really benefit you if you haven't done it before. And if you do plan to do any rebranding in the future, or maybe you should, even if you're happy with your brand and everything, you're not really changing anything, maybe if you've not done this before or you've not done it for a while, you should do it, because it will help you if you are doing some marketing and actively trying to find, get more inquiries and couples and clients. It will help you do that. So Shane Lindsay's not here because we were going to kind of discuss how we felt about this initially. I obviously did a bit of research on this, and I would say that this is something, the ideal client thing is something that's, see, the situation for us is that Lindsay's kind of been in and out of the business over the last few years. She's always been helping me shoot weddings, but in terms of the day-to-day running of the business and the editing and things like that, she's kind of, partly because of COVID and partly because we were kind of, she when we first started the business, she was still in her old career. So Lindsay's kind of been in and out of the business over the last few years. And so this is something I've definitely thought about before, but I wouldn't say I've ever done the process like this and written it down and done it in a table and everything like I have on this occasion. I think previously what I've done is just make either some very rough notes, or in my head I have had an idea. I've had the sort of attributes for this ideal client in my head. So when I'm doing a marketing campaign, like if I'm doing social media ads or whatever, I know who I'm targeting because I've got this stuff in my head. And when I'm writing copy, I've got an idea in my mind who I'm writing it to, but I've never done it quite as formally as this. So when me and Lindsay started talking about it, and I was kind of being very specific about the person's gender and things like that, I think Lindsay found it quite difficult because it does feel like you're stereotyping. It feels maybe a little bit discriminatory, and obviously we kind of these days we're not, defining someone by characteristics like gender isn't necessarily the correct thing to do. However, from a branding and from a marketing perspective, because when me and Lindsay were talking about it, she said she'd seen a blog that by one of the wedding directories and blogs or whatever, and I don't know which one it was, but it basically said 87% of people who are planning a wedding and booking the services for a wedding, booking the suppliers, are female. So to be honest, based on the factual aspects of that, and it doesn't mean that we're only ever going to work with females or we're only targeting females. It just means that if we're working on an ideal client persona, when it comes to weddings, and I'm not talking about same-sex weddings, I'm just talking if we took the whole market and we said the largest percentage of people who are planning a wedding are women, that's basically why our ideal client persona is a woman. And certainly when I'm running marketing campaigns, which I'll talk about in another episode of the podcast, but I'm targeting mainly females simply because that's who's more than likely going to be the ones contacting you to say, can I hire you? So, the avatar identity. What I've done is I've created a table and I've got attribute and I've got information. And I've split them down into categories. So the categories, for instance, the first one is general. And then there are these attributes that I'll go through now. And then we move on to the next category. So in general, we've got the individual person is a female. There's the age. There's where they live, education, employment, and income. Now, these things are socio-demographic type attributes. It is basically helping us to understand who this person is and what sort of money they've got and education. It's basically determining like without sort of being too stereotypical, it is trying to say what class is this person. And therefore, it helps us to indicate how much they're likely to spend on their wedding and what their economic means are, and background, basically. And by looking at that, these things are definitely important when it comes to ad campaigns. Simply because you can target on areas, you can target on ages, you can even target on income in some respects. You can target on education, and employment you can do some targeting on. But when you talk about branding, it also helps you to particularly write copy. I mean, from that, we might not be able to say what colour, what someone's favourite colour might be. Like we can't say someone likes the colour blue because of where they live and their education. But it will indicate a lot of things in relation to what they might, we'll go on to the next step, and then that helps us to indicate what magazines they might read or what music they might like and things like that. So that then gives us a little bit more of a narrow perspective. Once we've got this sort of broad socio-demographics, socio-economic demographic stuff, we can move on to more personality-driven and psychological stuff. So, to summarise there, I've got where do they live in Wetherby in a modern detached house. They've got a degree in medicine, so university level educated. They're a medical doctor. So, and that the second bit, I'm saying medical doctor who's earning 70 grand. That's been very specific, but I've also put in brackets underneath this stuff where they live UK wide, and then in brackets university level equivalent professional training, in brackets for employment, employed or self-employed professional, service or corporate, public and private industry. And then for income, in brackets, 40 to 80k, partner ideally has a secure income. Many of the couples have parents who support them with the cost of the wedding. So what you can see there is I've been very specific about who this person is, but then in brackets, I've put down more of a wide target demographic, as in that we're not talking about a specific person anymore. We're now talking about this is sort of the people, the group that this person would sit in. But it's when you're doing the persona, you do want to be specific because you do want to actually create this person, because that's the person you're going to write the copy for. That's the person you're going to create the content for. And it keeps you focused. So that when you're creating that branding, when you're doing that marketing, it's very focused. But then the broader thing is more of a target market from an advertising perspective. Okay, so the next section, we go on to likes and interests. So we've got general personality. So this is stuff to do with what are they like. So put down things like fun, enjoy socialising, can laugh at themselves. They're cultured, enjoy holidaying and travelling, enjoy variety of cuisines. And that could sound like anybody, couldn't it, really? But it isn't. There are people with very different personalities, and some people don't like socialising. Some people can't laugh at themselves. Some people don't like going on holiday or travelling. So, even if it seems obvious, write it down, because there are people who are opposite to this. And if you know that this is your ideal client, you know what your ideal client isn't going to be like as well. That's why you really need to kind of be quite prescriptive about this. And as well, I've put in there strong morals and values. And that's because that would indicate somebody who me and Lindsay would going to get along with. and whose company we would enjoy, and probably we're going to have more in common and share things, which is part of it, as well as it fitting with the business, because we are the business, because this is such a personal service. It's important that there is a connection there on a personal level as well as just a business level. Like I said, I won't go through all of them in like detail, but the next bit is family and relationships. Then we've got fitness and well-being. We've got entertainment, hobbies and activities. So, even if you think, well, why does it matter what somebody's hobbies are? Well, it does, because you are trying to actually describe exactly who this person is. So, think about yourself. If someone gave you all of these attributes and you had to answer each one of these, you could answer it really well, couldn't you? And then by then providing that to somebody, they would be able to go, yeah, I think I can kind of see who this person is without even meeting me. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to create this person who is fake. They're not real, but we're trying to create something that by reading this, we can really get a feel for who this person is. And that's why all of these attributes are really important. The next section is their wedding and how they find their suppliers. So, the first question is type of venue. So, type of venue could be describing the style. So, we've got barn weddings, we've got castle weddings, we've got teepee weddings, we've got town hall weddings, we've got village hall weddings, we've got hotel weddings, church weddings. So they're the sort of types of venue, I suppose. And then you could actually describe the type of venue. So for instance, I put versatile, offers different spaces for different elements of the day. So, different rooms or different areas of the venue for the different elements of the day, as opposed to, one massive space where everything is. And I guess I'm writing that down because through experience of going to different weddings, what will work better for the majority of, not everybody's wedding. It depends what sort of day they're having, but for a full day wedding, it does work better when it's broken into different areas sometimes. But there are occasions as well where that doesn't work. It says bride can get ready there and the guests can stay there too. So there's accommodation. That's under type of wedding venue. And then I've given some examples of wedding venues that are all very different. So they're not actually the same type of venue. One's a barn wedding, one's a hotel, one's a big castle type thing. And that's because there isn't really it's not like, oh, well, I just love doing weddings in castles, because it isn't that I love doing weddings in castles. It's that I like a variety of venues. That's not important to me. What's important is how the venue works and how it makes the day go and how it makes it all flow. Vibe and style of their wedding. So, party, fun, something for everyone, i.e. kids, parents, older people. Not too serious and stuffy. And, everybody's entitled to have exactly the wedding they want. The whole process of doing this is for you to identify who your ideal client is, so that you know the people you really enjoy and the weddings that you really enjoy going to, and where you do your best work, and also the ones that tend to like what you do and really value what you do. Because if they value it, you're on like a head start in terms of providing an excellent service. They're also likely to, if they value what you do, they're also less likely to question your pricing if it's premium, if it's higher than some other suppliers, because they want you. And you tend to find that if people like what you do and you like this sort of wedding, that's the great fit. Do you know what I mean? And so putting something like not too serious and stuffy, that's just not our vibe. You know, some people do like very serious, very, I don't want to use the word pretentious because it sounds awful, but some people just, that's their style, that's their vibe. And me and Lizzie wouldn't necessarily fit into that very well. And therefore, maybe those weddings are, you know, maybe some of those people have got more money to spend, but that doesn't necessarily make them our ideal client. Do you know what I mean? So it's figuring out all of the different things and the mix of them. It isn't just I want the people who've got the money, or I want the people that are having the best weddings. It's about figuring out all this stuff to find the perfect fit for what you're looking for. And it doesn't mean all your weddings are going to be like that. It just means you're trying to market to these people. Then how much are they looking to spend on their wedding? That's the last question in that section. The next section is what they want. So the first question is their previous experience of your service and how they felt about it. So not previous experience of the service you're going to provide, but of a similar service. So photography, videography. So if they've had a previous experience of a photographer at a wedding or a videographer at a wedding, you know, how did they feel about it? They might have had an awesome experience. They might have had a bad one. So what we want is people who've attended weddings where there's a videographer and they felt put off by a more old-fashioned approach. And we also want one that's seen a more modern approach to wedding films, and that's inspired them to kind of have their own idea, and it's helped them decide what they definitely don't want. So hopefully the ideal client has been to weddings where they've seen a more old-fashioned approach to videography, and then they've seen a more modern approach to videography. And that's helped them to see the difference between the two already and know that they want kind of what we're going to offer. And I guess, you know, if we're talking about that in relation to photography, again, the approach to photography not being too traditional and not being too formal and serious about basically capturing the atmosphere of the day, as opposed to, you know, let's have a million group shots and let's say cheese all the time, and let's have you doing photos that they probably won't really mean anything to you. They're just ones that you've seen on Pinterest or whatever, but you're not going to look back and go, oh, check out Aunt Ethel, or my grandma was dancing. That's one of my most treasured photos ever. So it's about having the experience of, hopefully they've had an experience of the photographers that they do enjoy and ones that they don't. Next question is, what about their concerns and considerations about the service you provide? So, being in your face, staged, big cameras. They need to know that basically the ideal client needs to know that they're going to get on with the person who's capturing the wedding. That's what we want. We want them to feel like, yes, we're going to get on with that person. And they want photos and videos to feel like them and not just generic memories. So they're concerned that the photos aren't going to feel like them, and they want them to feel like them. They're concerned that the person that's capturing the wedding, they're not going to get on with, and so it's really important to them they get on with that person. The reason that's a part of the ideal client for us is because that person's thinking about that, and that's our opportunity to be like, look, half of our service is not taking photos and videos. Half of our service is giving you a good experience on the day and before and after. How does your service solve their problem or make them feel good? So we use discrete cameras. We're an unobtrusive team. So unobtrusive gets used a lot these days. The reason I put team is because if me and Lindsay work together and we're doing photo and video together, basically with two of us, you're getting what you would get with a 4-person team with 2 photographers and 2 videographers, but you're doing it with just 2 people. That's because of the way that we've developed a way of working, so that we're both capturing photo and video throughout the day, and it works really well. And so you get an unobtrusive team. So you're getting a team of people, but just 2 people who work really well together. And you're not getting loads of extra bodies. So you're not like, you haven't got 2 people at the front of the ceremony and 2 people at the back and people trying to be in the same place at the same time. And it's an unobtrusive team. That's why I've put that down, because that's how it solves their problem. They're not looking for too much staged or posed stuff. The relaxed approach to the day, and they're like, our service solves their problem because we're relaxed and we aim to blend in with the guests, dress and behave professionally, and take good care of the couples. And the last one, why do they choose you and what makes them book you? So we go further than facilitating a transaction, build a relationship with our couples, and we gather personal information about them, which helps us to understand their likes and dislikes. It enables us to create films which are individual to only them. And we consciously film and photograph important elements of the day and find the right music to go with this. We make them and their close families feel special on the day. We're polite and respectful and make the effort to include children and elders. We go the extra mile and help with other little things on the day. That's what we've written down, and I've just read it because it's quite a paragraph there, and I think that's the best way of putting it. So we've written down that's why they choose us. Now, from all that information, that's great. I've actually just reminded myself, because we've got to write our website copy at the moment. That's just reminding me how we can write our website copy. I can come to this and I can pull bits out of this because it's perfect. It's properly describing what we do, how we do it for the client, which is perfect. So that's the persona, the client avatar, whatever you want to refer to it as. And that's the kind of one for the ideal client. And we can also create ones that are negative avatars. So we can kind of go the other way, and then we can create one or several that are people that we know we don't want to work with. So maybe we can think of people, think of couples, think of weddings in the past where we were like, that just wasn't the right fit for us. And we can do the same process to describe that person or describe that wedding. And that helps us to niche and focus down on the ones that we do want. And it helps us to steer our branding and steer our marketing advertising away from the people that we know it didn't really work and it didn't feel right. And we don't really want to go back to that situation again. So what do we do with all this information now we've got it? Well, as well as providing the foundations of our brand, there are other vital business functions that are going to rely on understanding this information. We use the avatar to make the copy for the website, for your social media posts, brochures, things like that, because you've got that person in mind as the audience. So, we could even go as far as calling that person a name, and we could then be like, so-and-so, and I don't want to pick a name, but let's just say Lindsay. Lindsay is this 33-year-old female who's a doctor and lives in this location, and these are the things she likes. And you've got this idea in your head so that when you're typing down your copy for your website, or you're writing a social media, maybe you're writing a social media post and you're thinking, what would Lindsay like to hear, right? And that also goes into, it's not just the copy, but it's the like we're picking an image to post on social, or we're picking a video to share with people, or a clip of something. What would Lindsay want to see, right? And maybe what that does then is it shifts you away from posting that epic, soppy bridal portrait that you're going to do, and it shows the the bride in the middle of the dance floor, in the middle of a dance off or something. Not necessarily that bride, but a picture of a bride doing that. And that's because you are thinking, what would Lindsay want to see? What would Lindsay want me to write? And then you're writing it and you're showing it for Lindsay. And that's how you're going to attract that ideal client. So the other aspect of this is that you're going to use it for targeting your marketing. And there's different ways we could look at that. We could look at it based on doing social media ads. So let's say it's Google. Let's say it's Google ads. Google ads, it could be, what keywords is Lindsay going to write? And we're going to think about where Lindsay lives, what venue she might go for, what terminology would she use to describe her wedding or describe you and your service. So if you kind of like think, well, maybe she wouldn't use the word videographer, maybe she'd use the word filmmaker, then maybe that means you need to target the word filmmaker. By the way, I think most people don't use the word filmmaker to describe wedding filmmakers. I think they describe them as videographers. That's just a side point. But essentially that's how it's going to help you. And so you're going to be able to use the right keywords to target in your kind of Google ad campaigns. Let's say it's social media. You're going to be able to use the demographic tools in there to be able to narrow down who you're going to show your ads to, and what, as well as the sort of age related and location and things like that. Maybe it's the things that they're going to like. So maybe it's a particular magazine, like, I don't know, Vogue Bridal, if you can target that. I'm not sure you can, but maybe it's a particular, maybe if you could look as far as TV programs. I'm not suggesting that that's what you do. I'm just giving you some wild examples, and certainly with other types of product and service, you can really, really go niche on that sort of stuff. So that's social and Google. What about wedding fairs? And what about getting on venues, suppliers lists at venues? Think about, if you know what venue Lindsay's going to get married at, what venues you're probably going to be wanting to kind of build some relationships up with. If you know what type of person Lindsay is she likely to go to a wedding fair? If she's going to go to a wedding fair, which wedding fair is she going to go to? Is she going to read blogs, or is she going to go on wedding directories to look for suppliers? And because you know what sort of person she is, and you know what sort of style she's into and all the rest of it, then we can then go and put ourselves on those directories or listed in those blogs, or submit weddings or do styled shoots aimed at getting into those blogs and things like that. So the whole thing is, rather than just going, well, I'm going to just do a styled shoot, or I'm just going to submit a wedding and just firing it off to any blog or any directory, getting listed on something, or just doing Google AdWords and doing wedding photographer, or doing social media ads and not being specific about whereabouts in the country you want to work and things like that, where you want to target people. Building this information up just means that you're going to be hopefully reaching your ideal client, and therefore receiving inquiries for someone like your ideal client. Right. Hopefully that all made sense. That's it for this week's episode. I hope it's been useful. And I'm sorry I'm by myself. I've really missed Lindsay. But I think I've been able to do this a little quicker, sort of because we haven't got chatting and gone off on a tangent. I've stuck to the script a little bit more. So I hope it's been useful. I really do think it's something that you will use. Whether you actually actively think about this and think, yes, I'm going to do my ideal client avatar and I'm going to use it to do X, Y, and Z, or whether you just subconsciously know this stuff anyway, it's a really good exercise to do, writing these notes down and being very intentional about how you use this in your branding and in your marketing and advertising going forward. If you've got anything you want to add, or if you've got any questions, a different take on something, please, we'd love to hear it. Get in touch with us by sending us a DM at Wedding Mavericks on Instagram or Facebook, or you can email us at info@weddingmavericks.com. You can visit the website weddingmavericks.com, and YouTube. The YouTube channel is also, if you search for Wedding Mavericks, that'll come up. And please, if you could just do us a favour, just subscribe to the YouTube channel, or follow the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Give us a review, share it with people. Like we can see the listens are going up. We're getting more people listening every week. We're getting some great feedback and messages from people. It's just it gives us so much motivation, and we're so excited. We can't wait to get going even more and do even more episodes. But share it with people who might want to listen. I know I'm always looking for new podcasts, and I would love to listen to one that was talking about wedding photography and videography, because there are some great ones out there, but there are very few that are actually niched into photography and videography and in the UK. So please, share it. And thank you very much for listening. Thanks to Divine Studios for sponsoring us, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.